A reading from the book of Revelation. God's temple in heaven was opened, and the Ark of the Covenant could be seen in the temple. A great sign appeared in the sky, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was with child and wailed aloud in pain as she labored to give birth. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Eight days after the Assumption of Mary, the Church celebrates the feast of the Queenship of Mary. And it does this in order to emphasize the close bond between Mary's queenship and her glorification in body and soul next to her son Jesus. Now, what does it mean when we say that we honor Mary as queen? I mean, what is this queenship? Well, Mary is queen because of her unique association to her son, both during her earthly journey with him as well as now in heavenly glory. She is the mother of the Lord, the King of Kings. And she points to Jesus as our life, as our hope, and as our salvation. She participates in God's responsibilities over the world and in God's love for the world. There's this commonly held idea that a king or queen should be people with power and riches. But this is not the kind of royalty that's proper to Jesus or to Mary. When we look at Jesus, we see that his kingship is interwoven with gentleness, humility, service, and love. It is above all else a kingship that is meant to serve, to assist, and to love. And we recall that Jesus was proclaimed king on the cross with the inscription that Pilate had written, King of the Jews. In that moment on the cross, it was revealed that Jesus is king. And how is he king? By one who serves and then suffers with us and for us by loving us to the end. It is in this way that he governs and creates truth, love, and justice. We shouldn't forget another moment, the Last Supper, when he stood up, took off his tunic, wrapped an apron around him, bent down, and washed the feet of his disciples. So the kingship of Jesus has nothing to do with that which belongs to the powerful of the earth. He is a king who serves, and he serves his servants, and he shows this throughout his life. And the same is true for Mary. She is queen in God's service to humanity. She is the queen of love who lives out her gift of self to God in order to enter into his plan of salvation for us. To the angel in the Gospels, she responds, "Behold, the handmaid of the Lord." And in the Magnificat, she sings, "God has looked upon the lowliness of his handmaid." She wants to help us, and she does help us. She is queen precisely by loving us, by helping us in every one of our needs. She is our sister. She is a humble handmaid. How does Mary exercise this queenship of service and love? First and foremost, by watching over us, her children, the children who constantly turn to her in prayer to thank her and to ask her maternal protection and her heavenly help, perhaps after having lost their way, or at those times when they are weighed down by suffering and anguish on account of the sad and troubled events of one's life. In times of serenity or in times of darkness of life, we turn to Mary, entrusting ourselves to her continual intercession, so that from her Son we may obtain every grace and mercy necessary for our pilgrimage along the paths of this world. To him who rules the world and holds the destinies of the universe in his hands, we turn with confidence through the Virgin Mary. For centuries, Mary has been invoked as the Queen of Heaven. Every time we say the Rosary, we end by saying, "Hail, Holy Queen." And she is implored in that beautiful litany of Loretto as Queen of Angels, patriarchs, prophets, apostles, martyrs, confessors, virgins, of all the saints and of families. The rhythm of this ancient invocation and daily prayers, such as the Salve Regina, help us to understand that the Holy Virgin, as our mother next to her Son Jesus in the glory of heaven, is always with us in the daily unfolding of our lives. So this title of Queen is therefore a title of trust, of joy, and of love. And we know that what she holds in her hands for the fate of the world is good, is good. She loves us, and she helps us in our difficulties. My dear brothers and sisters, devotion to Our Lady is an important element in our spiritual lives. So in our prayer, let us not neglect to turn trustfully to her, because Mary will not neglect to intercede for us next to her Son. In looking to her, let us imitate her faith, her complete availability to God's plan of love, her generous welcoming of Jesus. Let us learn to live by Mary. Mary is the Queen of Heaven who is close to God, but she's also the mother who is close to each one of us, who loves us, and who listens to our voice.